I often say narcissists are nothing if not predictable. And that's why when they realize you're done for real and for good, you are never coming back, there are 3 very specific things that the narcissist will do. And that is what we're diving into today. Let's do it. Hey friends, Tamie M, Joyce here, empowerment life coach, creator of the Freedom class and the Ascension class. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Please take a second to say hello and introduce yourself in the comment section below. And if you're back, of course, welcome back. Thanks for showing up and for tuning in. Either way, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be sure to get my new videos every Friday. So let's get into it. What can you expect when a narcissist realizes that you are never coming back? Well, a few things really, not least of which being their desire for you will likely go through the roof. Narcissists always want what they can't have. If it's out of reach, the desire factor is only going to go up for the narcissist. Why? Well, because the forbidden fruit effect is a very real thing. And naturally, to some degree, it's human nature to want something more when it's off limits or more challenging to get. But because of the gaping hole in their soul, people with a destructive narcissist personality pattern take this forbidden fruit effect to a whole other level. In addition, narcissists spend a lot of time in fantasy, sometimes to the point of being delusional, in particular in relation to themselves, their own worth, gifts, and talents, which is why they so often show up with an attitude of superiority and a shocking sense of entitlement. Once they realize you're gone for real and for good, that you are never, ever coming back, and now they have to deal with themselves and the void left behind in your absence, believe me when I tell you, they are going to feel that void, and in a big way. And in that void, they long for the one that got away. Now, the truth is, narcissists don't go after riffraff. You can be sure that if you've been pursued by a destructive narcissist for anything more than a one-night stand, it's because you bring a lot of good stuff to the table of the relationship. At the very least, you're someone who, in their mind, makes them look good somehow. And that's any relationship, by the way, not just romantic. So, with that in mind, when the narcissist is faced with the reality of what they've lost in losing you, you can expect them to begin using hoovering tactics in an attempt to suck you back into the abuse cycle. In fact, you can count on this happening. And if you want to learn more about narcissistic hoovering, you can watch this video here. Being prepared in advance is the thing that is going to save you a whole world of pain, drama, and trauma when the time comes. And here's the thing, friends. There's no time limit or expiry date on the narcissistic hoover. I've personally experienced a number of hoovering attempts after a decade or more of absolute no contact with a number of destructive narcissists from my past. They can be relentless. So when this happens, don't be flattered. This has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them looking to get their own sick needs met through you and at your expense. Nothing more. Once they have you back where they want you and the forbidden fruit effect has worn off, you can expect to be served another round of what we call the toxic abuse cycle, which, if you're not clear what that means, the narcissistic abuse cycle runs in 3 phases: the idealization phase, the devalue phase, and then, of course, the discard, with a whole lot of projection, gaslighting, lying, and deceiving along the way. And all of this starts with a healthy dose of love bombing. Love bombing, otherwise known as the idealization phase, is where we begin the narcissistic abuse cycle, either for the first time or all over again if, for any reason, there's been some time and distance. So, be clear. This is what's happening. You're being sucked right back into the toxic abuse cycle where you're being idealized before being devalued and then ultimately discarded, and possibly not for the first time. That's the cycle you're running. That's the cycle you're going to be cycling through if you allow the narcissistic individual back into your life. Now, many of you are already familiar with this abuse cycle because it's a pattern you've been living in your romantic lives, as well as with friends, family, and at work. And it's really, really painful. I don't need to tell you that. In particular, for those of us who are highly empathetic, highly empathic, and show up with the best of intent for these people. People who couldn't care less about our feelings, our well-being, or what's in our best interest. What happens if they can get a toe in the door is suddenly they begin to morph into that person you actually needed them to be to begin with. Back when you were being abused, before you went no contact out of sheer self-preservation. Now, all of a sudden, they're on their best behavior and they're doing all the right things and they're saying all the right things. And suddenly they even seem to know how to apologize, to some degree anyway. Painful as that might be for them. And you're thinking, wow, suddenly they can show up on time and be decent, kind, and respectful and show you how much they really care and how very, very sorry they are, or so they say, while they're making all kinds of empty promises in the hopes that you'll be naive enough to fall for the dog and pony show they've got going on. And the reality is, this is all very temporary. Their best behavior will be a very short-lived phase. If the stakes are really, really high, you might be able to get a few months of consistent best behavior out of them. But in no time, that mask is going to start to slip. In no time, you're going to enter the devalue phase where you become the target again. In no time, they're going to be blame shifting and projecting all of their disowned neurosis and psychosis all over you. So understand that if you've allowed that to happen, if you have not maintained firm, non-negotiable, and unapologetic no contact, while also having gotten into your own healing and recovery work, and they've gotten a foot in the door, and you're on the receiving end of all this love bombing and the future faking that goes along with it, the whole cycle has just started all over again. And when you realize that it's time to run for the hills again, make no mistake, you will be starting from ground zero. It doesn't get easier over time. In fact, it only gets worse. It only gets harder. Our self-esteem takes a bigger hit next time around. It becomes more embarrassing, more painful, more traumatic. The consequences emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, physically, and financially get worse or more grave with each relapse on the destructive relationship. So think long and hard before you decide to start falling for their words and the sudden shift in this whole new person who wasn't able to show up for you before. But suddenly now they're more motivated for whatever reason. Think long and hard before you start falling for any of the nonsense, because chances are very high that there's nothing but more pain and trauma coming your way. It's just a matter of time. Now, comment below and let me know whether or not you've had this experience. Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you'd like to learn more about the possibility of working with me in one of my coaching programs, there's a link in the description below this video where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-on-one consultation with either myself or a member of my team. Now, assuming that all attempts to hoover and love bomb you back in and exploit you at your weakest and most vulnerable have failed because you're neither weak nor vulnerable, but rather you've been taking excellent care of yourself. You've not only established no contact, but you are going to the next level. You're doing your own personal healing and recovery work. All of your time, energy, attention, and resources are focused on yourself. Learning to love yourself, learning how to heal yourself, learning how to take excellent care of yourself, learning how to live your best life as your best self. And as a result, you've maintained no contact, and all of their tactics, games, and strategies have failed miserably. What'll happen next is they'll send in the flying monkeys and little minions. That's right. incoming, meddling family, friends, neighbors, and sometimes even coworkers. People who do not have the wisdom to mind their own business. People who lack fundamental boundaries and common sense. People who are in possession of half the story, and a very distorted half at that, but they think they have all the information. People who want you to believe that they mean well while offering their unsolicited advice from a very narrow perspective. And again, a distorted perspective, but they can't see that. And the truth is, sometimes these people are well-meaning, naive and brainwashed as they may be. But let's be honest, more often than not, if they've aligned with the narcissist and are delivering their messages like little errand boys and girls, these people are anything but well-meaning. They too have an agenda, and it likely has nothing to do with your best interest. So beware of the flying monkeys and meddling little minions. They, by the way, are a great place to start practicing setting healthy limits and boundaries. Now, with that said, when all of these tactics fail to impress you, what's next? Well, tall tales, fairy tales, and false images, my friends. Listen, narcissistic people do not just walk off into the sunset and live happily ever after with anyone. Forget what you see on social media and what you hear through the grapevine. It's an illusion, all of it. If they didn't have it to give you, they aren't suddenly going to grow a heart and a conscience and become the person who has it to give someone else. And by it, I mean showing up in a relationship like a kind and decent human being with a heart and soul, with genuine empathy and a moral compass, with healthy love to give. If they didn't have it to give you, I promise you, they aren't suddenly going to have it to give whoever is unfortunate enough to be their next source of supply. So stop hurting yourself with the notion that someone else is getting the love that you didn't. Stop torturing yourself. Block them. Do your healing and recovery work and start loving yourself instead. Now, with all of that said, what you can expect next is a full-blown smear campaign. True story. If you hold the line, stand firm, and refuse to give in to their hoovering tactics, flying monkeys and little minions, even though they know full well they've blown what is likely to be the best thing that has ever happened or will ever happen to them, still they will smear you. Why? Because narcissists are bitter, resentful little cowards. And no matter how appallingly they themselves have behaved, they will have to land on either the hero or the victim side of the story. And as such, they'll cast you as the big bad villain to their victim. So know this in advance and brace yourself. They really are this kind of predictable, frankly, because it's all they've got. They can't get through to you. They can't use you, manipulate you, target or exploit you anymore. They can't even access you because you're doing all the right things. So now they're going to go after your character and your reputation and any relationship you have with others that they might have some influence over. And they'll say whatever it takes, no matter how untrue, how cruel, how unkind, or how bizarre. No matter what it takes, they will work to assassinate and annihilate your character and, again, your reputation to anyone who will listen. And this can be very painful for those of us who have been on the receiving end of a smear campaign, in particular in the early stages of our healing and recovery journey when we're still really wounded and vulnerable. And this is where doing the real healing and recovery work and having a solid support system around us can be so important. We can get to the place where we're bulletproof in the face of this nonsense, but it takes some work. And here's the thing. When the narcissist can no longer control you, access you, target, manipulate, or exploit you, they will work to manipulate everyone else's perception of you. They'll work to manipulate how everyone else sees you, what they think of you, how they feel about you. And I have to tell you, our job in a situation like this is to get to the place where we can rise above the noise and be largely, if not absolutely, non-affected. And I've walked this path in my own life, in many areas of my life, in fact. So I know how difficult and painful it can be. When they can no longer control you, manipulate you, as I said, exploit, have an effect on you, siphon your vital life force energy, target you directly, they will work overtime to smear and assassinate your character. And the reality is, this is the game they are going to play. And I get it. It can be daunting to conceive of the fact that this is what I'm going to be on the receiving end of. But I say better that you know in advance what to expect. Expect the worst case scenario and do your work. Do what you need to do to take care of and protect yourself. In doing so, you'll be far less likely to be taken out by whatever it is the narcissist has to say, no matter who believes them. And with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. But don't stop now. I have over 300 more videos right here on YouTube for you to watch to help you better understand the detrimental effects of narcissistic abuse, and more importantly, learn what you need to do now to heal from the abuse so you can start living your best life in peace, confidence, freedom, and abundance. And if you want to go deeper with me, you can go to TamieMCoaching.com and learn about my unique tried and true process, garnered over decades of experience, and learn how you can become my client.